My name is Shani Jones, and I am your resident certified sex coach. You are here watching DOYOU KNKY, and I appreciate you for tuning in and watching. I am trying to be a little bit more diligent than I have been in recent time of actually communicating things to you in a fairly responsive manner. So there are things that I come across all the time, and I just really never take the time to kind of just broach them out into the world and share them, because what I feel like is, as I am growing and developing and studying and learning to enhance my knowledge about sex and human sexuality, that my goal is to share that with you as I am on my journey. You are also on a journey, not the same, of course, but on a journey. So if you're here with me, ideally, you are here to grow as a human that has a healthy sexual appetite, which is your human right, which is your job, not your job, but your, again, right to own your sexual pleasure and to be able to express it in any way that you feel is pleasurable within the realm of consent and non-criminal activity. So I always feel like I have to preface that, but I feel like you know. But okay, so I have recently done a video where I have the KNKY coaches questions, and this is where people will pose questions, and I will take that question as an advisor to, and I would quote advisor because it's a general question posed without any novelty behind it, no nuances, no details really behind the person's situation or contributing factors and things like that. So there's a lot involved when answering people's questions, but if I were to take it just at face value, that is what I'm doing by giving advice just based off of the face value information. So all I have to say is I'm receiving questions, but I also now want to take the opportunity to do a KNKY coaches questions to you. So, and I apologize for my eyes being all over the place, but I have the screen and I have what I want to read to you today, because this is what prompted me to ask this question. And so the question that I pose to you is, have you ever made love? And so I'm going to get into why I'm asking that question. So as I am studying, I am reading currently a paper from 2016, but it's called The Barriers to Intimate Sexuality, Concerns and Meaning-Based Therapy Approaches. This is by Laura Lynn Armstrong, who at the time was a doctoral candidate in clinical psychology with the University of Ottawa. So I hope that at this time, Miss Armstrong is now Dr. Armstrong, and if so, congratulations. The article that she wrote as part of her research, I'm not sure exactly if it was part of her doctoral thesis, but her article speaks to something that we've talked about in different ways. But from what I got from the paper was that she is a bit more of a traditionalist when it comes to relationship structures and how people express intimacy, and then there are things that are lacking. So this is the title of the article, Barriers to Intimate Sexuality. So it was a 19-page article, so I'm not going to read all of it at all, but I pulled out a few excerpts that I want you to hear so that you can have some thoughts provoked by the question that I've asked based off of the text that I'm reading. Have you ever made love? So, from Ms. Armstrong, despite the ferocious need for intimate connection, Western society does not promote intimacy, particularly with regard to partner sexuality. Obstacles to sexual intimacy that are discussed include media portrayals of sexual and gender role stereotypes, performance-oriented sexual standards, the invisibility of the elderly as sexual beings, and the glamorization of non-relational sexuality and clandestine affairs. So, what does that mean? So this is the first snippet that I wanted to kind of talk about. So she's talking about that those things of the bullets are what are barriers to having intimate partnerships and to having that intimate sexuality, as part of a normal reconciliation of your life, because we are being bombarded with these mostly negative media stereotypes of what we're supposed to look like. In part of the article, she was like, unless you are young and beautiful and single and living your best life, then you're not having great sex. And part of her article is to combat that. She is saying that although different relationship structures can exist, the partner relationship and the connection with building that intimacy is lacking in our society today. So for those various reasons. Oh, and before I forget, the part about elderly being sexual beings, I was again reading an article today. So elderly people, especially elderly couples who have been in long-term relationships for 25 years or more, in that particular study are very, very sexually active. Also, and these are people, when I say elderly, I believe 65 and older. It ranged from, I believe, to 65 to 89. And in this particular article, the study revealed that those couples in this age bracket, some of those having the best sex are those that are in polyamorous or open relationships, consensual monogamy. So, and that is part of what the author here is talking about, these glamorizations of non-relational sexuality, just to be able to go out and not be in a committed, perhaps, with a misunderstanding of what polyamory or consensual non-monogamy is. You still have relationships, but those relationships are not under the confines of the traditional monogamous societal structure. So, depending on who you talk to, word definition plays a key in a lot of different things. So, second point was, therefore, intimate sexuality can be defined as an expression of love and a meaningful connection that is fueled by emotional intimacy and physical tenderness inside and outside of the bedroom. Now, we've talked about this. Intimacy is not the act of sex itself. Sex isn't even the act of sex itself. And sex meaning, penis to vagina penetration, that sex is an umbrella word, and we can talk about it, in greater detail about what encompasses sex. But sex is an experience, not just an act. So please keep that in mind when you hear me talking. Whatever definition, I'll do a whole nother video on defining sex. So when I say sex, you know exactly what I mean. And in context, because I digress just a little bit. But it's like the word motherfucker and how Bernie Mac uses it. It's a adjective, noun, and a verb. So you have to listen to me closely to understand how it is that I'm using those particular words. So in this article, prior to this statement about intimacy being inside and outside the bedroom, the author was discussing how in many long-term relationships, it's the intimacy between couples that breaks down that then results into those that become into a sexless or a near sexless marriage. And that is, a sexless marriage is considered 4 times a year or less. And so the article for this particular paper indicated 10 times or less, which means you're averaging less than once a month when you're having sex with your partner. Now, part of the reason that could be is because you have lost the ability to, exchange in that physical touch. A lot of times I've talked in several videos about there is a touch spectrum, and a touch can be something as gentle as holding hands or a hug, very innocent, very benign, to something where you're actually fondling or touching very sensitive or erogenous parts of the body. And when you do that, that signals an ulterior motive beyond just the touch. So it's not just the touch because, you want to let me know that you're here and you're showing me affection. No, you're touching me because you have an ulterior motive and you want something sexual to happen from that. So depending on the mood and depending on what's going on, that may or may not work to accomplish your goal. But it's also about understanding who you are dealing with in your partnership, the scenario and the situation at the time, whether or not it plays into, does this work for me or not? Okay. So, but the point of the author is that you have to have both emotional intimacy, which means you can't lose that, connectedness, that, that interconnectedness, that relational intimacy. You can't lose that and still expect to have that physical tenderness that comes with it, because at some point, whenever you're disconnected emotionally, even if you do decide to engage in sex, you're disconnected from a physical perspective, you're disconnected at that emotional level. So there's still a barrier and a breakdown. Okay, so let's get to the author's last point it's not her last point, it's my last point that I want to make to you regarding this paper. Sexuality in recent years is no longer viewed as a metaphor for ecstasy and happiness. In practice, sex is often silent and emotionally isolated. There has been a fashionable disassociation of sexuality and intimate relationships and a commercialization of sex. Intimacy is impeded by the commodification of sexuality. As a result, many individuals are emotionally sterile and unable to be emotionally connected with the person with whom they are the most physical. Therefore, in an era of disconnection, individuals are having sex without ever having learned how to make love. So, hence my question. We have been, as a society, we have grown up with various messages. I'm not going to say they were all good or bad or whatever, but we grew up with messages, especially as children and adolescents, that have kind of shaped us and developed us into the human beings that we are now. We carry those messages forward, and hopefully when we recognize that those messages are unproductive, unhelpful to our growth and development, that we take ownership of that feeling and turn that into action where we're actually doing something about it, which is where I say, talk to someone like me who is a certified sex coach, talk to a certified sex therapist that can help you through any type of barriers that are potentially holding you back. What this tells me is, again, this is not everybody, it's really not everybody, but there are certain people that find happiness in the relationship dynamics that they have. But the author is posing that many of our relationships, although we have them, are not more than just superficial or at the level of connectedness where love permeates throughout. So we're doing more, we're just kind of going through life under this disconnected umbrella. We're here, we're there, people come, people go. I actually am envious of those relationships that I see, especially with older adults that have been together for, 25, 30. I was looking at something, I can't remember who it was, were together, married for 40 plus years. I'm like, who does that? But literally, who does that? I don't know. Personally, I don't have people in my life that have that longevity. But, I can see it. Now, what is not surprising to me, which actually gives me a little hope, is that the seniors in the article that I referenced earlier, the fact that they were practicing consensual non-monogamy, they understand that for them, their primary relationships satisfied to a certain degree, and that love is there, that partnership is there, that connection is there, that is real. But there are times when people need variety, they need... I was watching another video in the studies, and they were like, and we say it all the time, it takes a village to raise a child, right? So that just basically said, I am mom. And as mom, I take on 100% of all responsibility to take care of my child. But there are times when I can't do it by myself. There are times where I have to rely on somebody else to tag me out so that I can go and take care of something and they can help me and be a part of my village. So they're picking up slack where slack on my end doesn't need to be there because I have somebody that can help me and pick up the pieces. So, and well, not even pick up the pieces, don't let the shit fall so that there are no pieces to pick up, right? And so I think that's the same thing when we're talking about people who practice consensual non-monogamy and polyamory. They realize that their village is bigger than just one other person to satisfy all that is them. I digress, and I'm chatty. So anyway, the author's position is really about pair bonded monogamous individuals, that there is an opportunity to have that connectedness, and many of us are not living life with that experience. And because we are living with emotional sterility, and we are unable to connect to the people that we are closest to, especially the people that we are physically intimate with, that we have never learned how to make love. So have you ever been in love? Have you been in love to the point where you know with all of your heart that that love was genuine and pure? And then from there, was the sex that you had with that person that was the love that you had at that time, or perhaps still now? Is that sex better than all of the disconnected sex that you've had in life? So, is there a better when it comes to sex? Is sex better with the person that you love, or can you love the person that you're with? So, I look forward to your answers and your comments under this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. You can follow me across social media at DOYOUKNKY. I appreciate you. I will talk to you again soon.